Welcome to my channel, Still Glamorous. Still struggling, still trying. Anyway, I went over onto Instagram, the gram, and I asked you guys to ask me anything. Took some screenshots of the questions and here we are. I am going to answer these questions and you guys are gonna get ready with me. I'm gonna get ready for the day so I can feel pretty and get shit done. Because when I don't feel pretty, I don't get shit done. I feel unworthy and depressed. Yay! I love makeup. Also, I am running on a lot of caffeine. I had a coffee this morning and I just got a Vampire Slayer. My skin is prepped. First question is from my mom. Do you think you should hang out with your mom more? Listen, Mom. Yes, I do. I do see my mom. I don't see her as often as I would like. I am constantly working. Like, I work on the weekend, I work Monday through Friday. I kind of feel like my work life and my personal life are like blurred together. I am in hustle mode because I'm doing this all on my own. And it's been really hard because I wish I had more time for friends and family. And I do feel like I'm getting better at prioritizing my relationships. Have you worked the shadow work journal? Do you recommend it? I'm not familiar with the shadow work journal, but I am familiar with shadow work. And for those of you that don't know what shadow work is the process of exploring the unconscious parts of yourself, especially those you've suppressed or rejected over time. And I think it's such an important practice for personal and spiritual growth because it helps integrate all aspects of who you are. The shadow refers to parts of your personality or emotions that you repress because they seem unacceptable or unpleasant. I had to learn about this concept and recognize that everyone, all of us, have a shadow. So it's important to pay attention to your emotional triggers, times when you feel anxiety or overly reactive, angry, or judgmental. And triggers point to shadow aspects of yourself that you are uncomfortable facing. So again, I haven't tried that journal, but I do recommend journaling. It's one of the most powerful tools in shadow work. Write down your thoughts, write down your reactions, and just any uncomfortable emotions that you have daily. Reflect on why you feel certain ways about situations or people. Shadow work can bring up feelings of guilt, shame, regret. And this is when my mantra, stay soft, comes in. It's important to approach these parts of yourself with compassion and understanding because healing comes through accepting the parts of you that have been ignored or repressed. So creating conversations between different parts of yourself. For example, ask the part of you that feels jealous why it feels that way and try to understand its deeper concerns. And this internal dialogue helps uncover deeper truths about your emotions. And often the way we interact with others mirrors our own inner world. On my shadow work journey, I had to notice the repetitive patterns in my relationships that were indicating unresolved shadow issues. Like, for example, just noticing, are there people that are in your life that you consistently clash with? And just exploring what they might be reflecting back to you. Another great way to work with your shadow is creativity. So whether that's painting, drawing, writing stories about the parts of yourself that you want to explore or understand better. And the biggest tip I can give anyone going through shadow work is accept what you find. The goal of shadow work isn't to fix yourself, but to integrate all parts of you, even those that you find uncomfortable. By accepting your shadow, you move towards wholeness and self-awareness, which can deepen your spiritual growth. If there's one thing that shadow work has taught me personally, is the work must be done with patience and it must be done with kindness, knowing that each step helps you become more aligned with your true self. How do I move on from someone that has stopped choosing me? Moving on from someone that doesn't want you is painful and it's so hard. Moving on is something I know how to do because I've had to do it a few times. I think accepting your feelings, it's natural to feel hurt. It's natural to feel that rejection, disappointment. Allowing yourself to feel those things without any judgment. I'll be honest with you guys. When I got divorced, I was drinking almost every single day. I was partying. I was doing the most because it was a distraction for me. At the time, I was like, oh, I'm gonna live my life. I was distracting myself from reality. And I didn't allow myself to feel the disappointment, the hurt, the pain, the rejection. I was being a bad girl. And it definitely was a phase. It was not something I could maintain or keep up with. Eventually, I was like, this is not working. And also acknowledging your reality. Remind yourself that someone who doesn't want you is not the right person for you. Focus on self-love. Invest time in yourself by engaging in activities that make you feel good about who you are. This could be a new self-care routine, picking up a new hobby. And you have to limit contact. Distance yourself from the person, whether it's physical, social, online. This will help you start to detach emotionally. Also, talk to friends. I am very, very fortunate to have a great support system behind me. I talk to friends, I talk to family. Discussing your feelings can help lighten that emotional burden. Having someone to talk to is super, super important. A lot of the pain comes from the idea that we had of this person. So avoid idealizing the person. Instead of focusing on their positive traits, remind yourself of the things that did not align and weren't right for you. I think it's also important to create new memories, engage in activities that bring you joy, meet new people, rediscover what makes you happy outside of that relationship, and give yourself time. Moving on takes time. It does not happen overnight. It's okay to have moments where it feels harder. Healing happens gradually, and eventually you will find yourself moving forward and feeling stronger. Are you doing OnlyFans anytime soon? No, never. And I'm a type of person never say never. No, I will never, ever create an OnlyFans. I know I've posted sexy stuff like lingerie, but my intention behind that is on the self-love, self-care realm. I honestly post that for girls. I don't post that as a thirst trap for dudes. Absolutely not. I find beauty in lingerie. I find beauty in sensuality. I know I come on here and talk about toys too. I'm trying to remind women that lingerie can be self-care. Toys is self-care, pleasure, again, sensuality. I'm all for those things. Do you feel like you lost yourself for a bit when your kids were little? I got pregnant at 15, had my son at 16, and then I had my next child at 18, and then my next child at 21, and then my last child at 25. So I kind of grew up with my kids. When I was in my 20s, I went out a lot. My mom is the best grandma, and she did babysit because I still hung out with my friend group, but I still did the mom thing. Like, my kids were in sports, I took them to practice. For me, being so young, I had a really great balance between like being an individual and being a mom. I had hobbies, I had my friend groups, I went out, but I also did the mom thing. I cooked, I cleaned, my kids were in sports, I went to their school events, my kids went on vacations, I went on vacations. But I will say, I can see how women can lose themselves by becoming a mother, and that becomes their whole identity. So I do think that I kind of fought for that part of myself. Because if you don't, you'll go crazy. Maintaining your sense of self while raising kids can be challenging, but it's essential for your well-being. And not even just your well-being, but the well-being of your family. I have always prioritized self-care. Don't get me wrong, I have had bouts of depression where I didn't shower for a few days, didn't brush my teeth, didn't brush my hair, stayed in the same clothes for 3 days, didn't shave, like didn't put any effort into myself. And I got out of that real quick because it didn't feel good. And I realized quickly that making time for activities that recharge you, like makeup or exercise or reading or simply taking a few minutes to relax. No, self-care is not selfish. It's necessary. And setting boundaries is so important because it's easy to let parenting consume you and all of your time. So it's like you have to set boundaries where you can. So this can mean making time for your hobbies or your career goals or your friendships. I have to pursue my passions. When I don't pursue my passions, I get depressed. I refuse to give up on what makes me feel alive and inspired. Even if it's just small doses, like I wish I could paint every day. So just finding that time to do the things that remind you of your individuality beyond parenthood. If you're a parent, you have to take breaks. It's important that you have time away from your kids occasionally. And this can be as simple as like going for a solo walk or a weekend getaway. I feel like having those breaks help you reset and recharge and actually make you a better mom. It's always also been important for me to maintain like a growth mindset, and I've always saw myself as a constantly evolving person, even while being a parent. So it's important for me to continually set personal goals and explore new interests. And even though my kids aren't small anymore, they're all teenagers and my oldest is 22, balancing parenting and personal identity is ongoing, even when they're not so little anymore. By nurturing yourself, you'll feel more fulfilled and be a better parent for your kids. Are you ever extremely tempted to cover the gray? Loving the journey, girl. The grays are graying. I am not tempted to cover my gray. I'm actually really enjoying seeing them. I can't wait for them to be completely grown out. I'm really enjoying the process. The fact that I've been able to leave it alone. I'm just really proud of myself. How has PMDD been for you lately? Any tips? Some months are better than others. Because I track my period and I'm very regular, like I start literally every 28 days. So it's easier to track, and like clockwork, 7 to 10 days before my period, I start to notice it. But because I am aware of it, I'm able to navigate my PMDD a lot easier than I used to. I am doing this naturally. I have thought about getting on something because sometimes it's just so bad and it really interrupts my life and it really affects my relationships with my kids, with my friends, with my family. But I just refuse to get put on medication. So I'm doing it naturally. I have noticed I drink the most 7 to 10 days before my period. I just crave alcohol, like I want to drink. But the rest of the month, I don't really crave alcohol. only when I'm in that phase, in that luteal phase, and I'm recognizing that, and I'm like, okay, well, this isn't a healthy way to cope. Like, this isn't gonna work, right? And I also notice when I eat healthy and I exercise, my luteal phase and menstrual cycle is a lot easier. It still sucks. I think even women that don't have PMDD, like, our periods suck, like physically, emotionally, mentally. And the reason for that is because our body wants to get pregnant. When we don't get pregnant, we start our period. So if you think about it, our wombs create this lining and this tissue because it wants to support a baby, because our bodies want to get pregnant. And when you don't get pregnant, it's almost like a small death that's happening. So yeah, we're going to be grumpy. Yeah, we're physically in pain. So if you think about it that way, like the natural rhythms and roles in nature, like, it makes sense for us to not have a great time during this phase of the month. This kind of goes back to like shadow work, like accepting those uncomfortable feelings, just getting through it, because we're not going to feel 100% all of the time. And I just have to remind myself of that. Like, of course we want to feel good. We want to look good. And when it's that time of the month, like, I don't know about you guys, but I feel like I look ugly. I feel so low. I feel very depressed. Like, it's just not fun. But accepting, like, hey, you go through this every month, and finding ways to cope that are healthy. So for me, it's like lighting incense, listening to calming music, avoiding conflict, you know, because I can be very irritable. I kind of isolate myself. And I know that isolation, that can be such a negative term. It's okay to isolate. Not all of the time, but what works for me is isolation during that time. If there's an event happening or a birthday party or something going on and I get invited and it's like luteal phase, menstrual phase, I say no. So learning to create boundaries around that time has been super helpful. Don't push yourself to do something that you know that you're not in the space for. Don't force yourself to do things you don't want to do. Anytime, but especially around that time. Create boundaries, say no, learn to be with yourself during that phase. For me, I find that I really enjoy creating around this time. So I'll paint more, finding some stretching videos on YouTube and just stretching here in my room. Just picking up some new hobbies around that time of the month that you can kind of get lost in. Next question. How can I move on and be happy in a new relationship? Being happy in a new relationship requires intentional effort, self-awareness, emotional balance. One of the things that I've learned that can keep us out of happiness is not being present. So enjoying the moment without rushing into the future or dwelling on the past relationships. Focus on getting to know your partner and building that new connection. I think too, if you're relying on this relationship to be happy, I think that could be not a great thing. You have to maintain your individuality by setting boundaries that allow you to balance the relationship with your personal life. And trust me when I say that that will help you avoid feeling overwhelmed or losing yourself in this new relationship. When we get into relationships, we want to like prioritize that person, right? And you have to continue to prioritize your own well-being. When you feel secure and happy within yourself, it's only going to enhance the quality of your relationship. Avoid comparing your new relationship to your past one or other ones that you see. Each relationship is unique. Just focus on what works for you and your partner. Let the relationship develop naturally. Don't put so much pressure onto be happy, be happy. Like, let things unfold. Don't pressure you or your partner to rush into certain milestones. Being happy in a new relationship is about nurturing it with care, patience, self-awareness, while also allowing it to grow at its own pace. Okay, I can't talk and do my brows at the same time. I'm not talented like that. So I'm gonna do my brows and I'll be right back. Next question. Do you ever deal with anxiety? Absolutely. Let me tell you about it. I still have work to do, but I have done a lot of work. It doesn't mean that I don't experience it anymore. I have just learned how to manage it. I can't talk and do lip liner. I have more of a manageable perspective. I like to name my anxiety. I actually gave my anxiety a funny name. No one really knows Anxious Annie because this is like a conversation I have in my head when I feel anxious, and I feel like this takes a lot of self-awareness. And I know because I used to do this. I would be anxious and not even really aware. This is just how I would like live my life. But once you get some self-awareness as you grow and you learn. So now when I feel anxious, I kind of tell myself like, oh great, here comes Anxious Annie with her unnecessary concerns. Because that's what anxiety does. It either pulls us in the past or it pulls us in the future. Giving a name to it kind of helps you detach from your anxiety. It's actually really helpful. I love humor, and humor is actually one of my coping mechanisms. So like making a joke out of it, like using humor to acknowledge your anxious thoughts. So for example, like I'm overthinking at 3 a.m. I wake up, I can't go back to sleep. I will try to tap in to some humor to like ease that anxiety. So like, oh, my brain has decided to run a 3 a.m. marathon. Too bad there's no medal at the end. Ha ha ha. Sometimes the best medicine is playfulness and, like I said, humor. So playfully challenging your anxiety is a great way to survive those anxious anxiety conversations without completely spiraling. So like turning this situation into a potential joke to ease the tension. And the number one way I deal with my anxiety is just being mindful of the words I'm saying to myself. If I have the verbiage of you're incapable, or you're not good at what you do, or you're replaceable, or just all that negative self-talk, I notice it. Like before, I could just like sit and talk like that to myself for days, weeks, months. Now I catch that shit so quick and I'm like, no. I give myself a positive pep talk. Like, actually, you do got this. You've survived 100% of your worst days. Look at you. Go ahead with your bad self. Just being aware of how you talk to yourself, because our thoughts create our feelings. And I've also learned that our anxiety can serve us too. It's not all bad. My anxiety makes me get a lot of shit done. So it's a lot of balancing humor with self-compassion without downplaying your emotions. How are you so in tune with your feminine energy? So eyeshadow primer. I'm going in with this matte light purple. I feel like I've always been connected to my intuition and creativity, receptivity, nurturing, all of those like feminine qualities. Even as a kid, I loved self-care and beauty and makeup and taking time for myself. When I was a kid, I would meditate and I didn't even know what I was doing. It wasn't until I was an adult and I learned about meditation and I'm like, oh my gosh, like I would do those things as a kid. I used to climb this tree that we had in our backyard and I would take my little diary up there and I would journal, and then I would just like sit there and like look at the sky without like any thought really. I would just sit there and like take in the sky. And I was just really good at engaging in activities that made me feel good. And feminine energy is strongly tied to intuition, trusting your inner voice, practicing mindfulness to get in touch with your feelings. And again, this is something that I I feel like I've always naturally done. Although some of my life choices can be questionable, I've always connected with my inner guidance. And I've also allowed myself to fully feel and express my emotions, whether, talking to a friend or journaling or painting. I express myself a lot through my paintings, and I've always honored my emotions. And feminine energy thrives in creativity, whether it's art or music or cooking, any form of self-expression. I think it's important to let your creative side flourish. Anytime I create, whether it's a meal or a makeup look or a painting or a YouTube video, like anytime I create, that's when I feel like in tune with myself the most. Another aspect to feminine energy that I feel like I connect with a lot is being open and being receptive. Like I allow myself to receive love, and the way you develop it is just practice receiving, practice being in that receptive mode. When you're open, it creates a balance and it really does nurture your feminine essence. And I've also surrounded myself with a lot of feminine energy. I think spending time with other women who uplift you and inspire you, sisterhood and like female connections that help you tap into your own feminine energy, I feel like that's really, really important. I also believe that feminine energy has a lot to do with like embodying grace and flow. Feminine energy is fluid and it's adaptable. Again, this is something that I wasn't taught. I just kind of naturally have always been this way, where like I just practice going with the flow instead of like constantly striving for control. Sometimes I do wish I had more masculine energy because I've been told in the workspace I need to be more assertive. Naturally, my personality is going with the flow, and it's really hard for me to kind of tap into that like control role. It's kind of like I love that about myself, but then sometimes I do wish I had more of an assertive personality. I'm gonna take this really pretty color in Ghost Train. It's so pretty. Oh wait, that one's pretty too. How often should couples have sex? When it comes to how often couples should have sex, the answer is there's no magic number. Oh my god, that's so pretty. Stop it. Unless you found a secret sex calendar the rest of us don't know about. Wow, oh my god, I love this. The real answer is as often as both parties feel satisfied and connected and happy. And that could be every day. That could be less frequent. Think of it like pizza. Some people want it every night. Others are good with once a week. But as long as you're both happy with the serving size, you're good. Okay, I love this question. What's the most satisfying part of motherhood? I would say the most satisfying part of motherhood is often like the small everyday moments that like reflect the deep bond. When they say I love you out of nowhere, hitting a milestone. And it's a sense of knowing that despite the challenges, because listen, being a mother is the hardest job you will ever do in this life. You are their world and you are helping shape who they'll become. And that feeling of unconditional love and watching them grow is just like pure magic. And I know it's our job to teach them, right? But I am not gonna get emotional. I just did my damn makeup. There are things that my children have taught me that I would have never learned otherwise. You know, we are here to teach our kids, but I feel like they teach me. I don't want to get emotional. I feel like they teach me so much more. The reason why I go so hard every day is because of them. I am who I am today because of them. I'm a very reflective person, and I always want to be, like, I strive to be better than I was yesterday, and it's all because of them. Like, I want to be a better person so I can be a better mother. Like, I place a lot of value on having patience, and they teach me that every day. And that's not to say I don't lose my shit, I don't lose my cool, because I do, but I reflect, and I am always looking to be more patient, and I'm always looking to be just a better person. It is because of them. Okay, I'm gonna add some highlight here. I'm gonna take some of that purple on my lower lash line, on the outer lower lash line. I love this mascara. It's the new Maybelline Firework mascara. It's so good. Definitely gonna repurchase. I'm not gonna do any eyeliner today, just some mascara. I would love to do another get ready with me, like Q&A style. I usually get my questions from Instagram because they have the little question sticker, but I would love to get some questions from YouTube since that's where the video is going. So maybe I'll do another get ready with me if I get enough questions in the comments. This is the finished look. I hope you guys enjoyed today's video. Give me a thumbs up. It shows me that you care, and I will see you guys in the next one. Peace.